Sky Sports Cricket Podcast. I'm in charge this week simply because I'm still in England and my flight to Perth is in about 4 hours' time. So I'll be asking the questions of our man on site, Michael Atherton. You've been in Perth for a week. Have you had a good week in Perth?
I've had a jet-lagged week. I really suffer with jet lag. No matter how many times I come to Australia, I don't know, I've been here about 12 times now, it don't get any easier. I think I handle it badly. I basically just sleep when I feel tired, which means I've been up at all hours. Anyway, very enjoyable first week. We went out
Just
to
read one of
Lilac
your
Hill.
Times articles, Michael. That'll send you off perfectly, to be honest. Have you
Well,
been
when you
running
get
down the river?
I did the bridge to bridge run, which was a 10K. That was on the first morning that I got here. I got up at like 4:30 or something, and it's light at 5, as you know. So I did that. Been through the botanical gardens a bit, which is lovely. You'll remember that. And then went out to Lilac Hill to watch England's warm-up game. You'll remember Lilac Hills, where we used to start the tour off with that kind of jazz hat game, festival game. I remember facing Dennis Lilly there once. I think he probably got me out. He was about 55 or something. Anyway, it was nice to go back there. And I'm sat actually at the Perth Stadium right now. England have trained this morning. They've named their 12. And I'm sat at the Perth Stadium just looking out really on the ground. It's like a mini MCG. It's very different from the WACA, all enclosed. There's going to be about 60,000 here. I think the first 3 days are sold out. And there's a load of anticipation in Perth. Lots of England fans have arrived and full of anticipation for what should be a fantastic Test match and fantastic 2 months ahead.
As you say, England have just named their side. Let's have a look through that. Stokes, Archer, Atkinson, Bashir, Brook, Cast, Crawley, Duckett, Pope, Root, Smith, and Wood. Any surprises there in that 12? They've named a 12. Often they just name an 11. What do you think of the 12?
I suppose the surprise is Bashir, just because he seemed a bit peripheral at Lilac Hill. Will Jacks did all right. One or two people thinking, would Will Jacks sneak into the 12 ahead of him? But he hasn't. And, you know, McCullum's as good as his word, I suppose. At the end of the season, he said Bashir's our number one spinner. And that hasn't changed. And I think it shows that they're pretty confident in Mark Wood's fitness. And I suspect the final decision is not around his fitness, assuming, you know, he rocks up tomorrow having bowled today, okay. I think the final decision is around the balance of the side and whether they play a spinner or not. My guess is, I'm looking out at the pitch now, it's getting progressively less green, but I still think England might go for an all-seam attack rather than play the spinner. And I think that's only happened once, has it, under Stokes? I'd have to check, get Benedict to check, but I reckon the Lord's Test, maybe the Ashes Test of 23, he went in without a spinner, but generally likes to play a spinner. I'm not sure they will here.
Generally, we both like to play a spinner, and Nathan Lyon's record is good at Perth. But I mean, obviously, he's a very experienced cricketer. It does show maybe that they fancy the 5-man attack. And where are you with Mark Wood? You would have been at that warm-up game. He got through 8 overs before hobbling off with a hamstring, which has been cleared. How's he gone in practice? They say he's been
He's
bowling
been pulling very, very quickly in the nets. That Lilac Hill, it was a very precautionary scan. I don't think they were particularly worried, but they just wanted to get a precautionary scan out the way. The issue at Lilac Hill, I think, was the sponginess of the outfield, and he's not played red ball cricket, first class cricket, for 15 months or thereabouts. So there's bound to be that element of concern. But he bowled quickly in the nets here yesterday. England were thrilled at the quality of the nets. You'll remember the old WACA nets, which were fantastic, unless you were facing Devon Malcolm or somebody in them. But they're brilliant nets. I chatted with Joe Root, who didn't get any runs at Lilac Hill, but he came out the nets bouncing. He said he'd had a fantastic net, great surface. Wood bowl quickly, rocked up all right today. He'll have had another bowl today. They'll see how he rocks up tomorrow. But I think they want to play Wood and Archer together, and that's only happened once in Test cricket. So that's a real mouth-watering, enticing prospect, isn't it? Two of, well, the fastest bowlers that England have ever produced out on the park together on what is supposedly the quickest pitch that we'll see. So I was looking at back at the stats, and they've only played together once. That was Stokes' very first game as England captain at Southampton against West Indies. England lost, actually, but they've never played together in Test cricket since then for all kinds of injury-based and related reasons.
The other decision they had to make is that crucial, pivotal number 3, and was that just cleared up by Ollie Pope playing well in that warm-up game? He spoke afterwards about just the break between the end of the season and Lilac Hill. He's been tinkering with a couple of things in his game. He seems to start tours really well. England will be hoping he'll be continuing with that form.
I tell you what I noticed, Nas, was with Pope was that he just played very calmly. Actually, I was sat in the press tent. We were sideways on, and he played just a very kind of normal forward defensive at the start of his innings. But you know how he can be a bit like jabby at the ball and a bit frenetic at the start of his innings. He wasn't like that at all, actually. And I just made a mental note of it very early on and thought, oh, that looks, nice and calm and composed. And it's no surprise then that he went on to get runs in both innings. He played really well. And as you say, he's had an indifferent time of it here. The last time in the Ashes, he was all over the hockey, wasn't he, with his footwork? Do you remember he got bowled behind his legs at Hobart at the end of that series, and he was just kind of technically all confused. And they banish most technical thoughts now, these guys under Stokes and McCullum. So he may be set for a decent tour. I mean, you look at the batting lineup; they're not wet behind the ears anymore. These guys, Crawley's 60 tests, Pope's 60 tests, Duckett's 40 tests. The only one really who's learning his way a bit is Jamie Smith, the keeper batter, who's only played 15 games. But I counted them up. There's almost like 450 caps between that batting lineup. And you'd remember, Nas, as a captain, you want a solid batting lineup, don't you, of experienced players, and then you want some ammunition with the ball. And I think they've got both those bases covered with this squad.
Someone who is a bit wet behind the ears is Jacob Bethell. I mean, do you think that was a bit of a sliding doors moment? You spoke about it at the time, the debate whether he should come back and play that Zimbabwe test. I mean, it was up for debate. Bethell and the way he went in New Zealand, they would have had him down as a possible number 3 for this tour. If he had his time again, do you think he'd come back from the IPL, or do you think he sits there now thinking he made the right decision?
Good question. I don't know. Maybe we'll get him on the pod and ask him. But I mean, I take the point that once he didn't, and once Pope got runs against Zimbabwe, then it became very difficult. And I do have some sympathy for Jacob Bethell in the sense that he's had so little cricket last summer. We've spoken a lot on the pod about that, about the way he's been managed and his lack of cricket. But of course, he didn't take his opportunity either. He had a chance in New Zealand, didn't he, in the white ball games when Pope wasn't there. He just had a chance to really make a statement and say, "Here I am, pick me." But that didn't happen. Then didn't get runs at Lilac Hill. Pope got runs, and that question was put to bed very quickly, really. And then the other big news, of course, is around Australia with Hazelwood. They had that day where England thought Wood might have been croc. Hazelwood's scan came back okay. And then within 24 hours, that news had turned around completely with Wood fine and Hazelwood out. So they're missing Cummins and Hazelwood. So it's a massive opportunity for England now. I really feel this is a great opportunity, which is not to be dismissive of the players that Australia will pick and who will come in, because they'll be good cricketers, obviously. But it ain't easy to replace 600 Test wickets.
As our old mate Jack Russell used to say, you need more arse than class. I don't know if I can say arse on the Sky Cricket podcast, but I just did. So you do need a bit of luck to go here, right? And you're right. I mean, if you'd said to Key, McCullum and Stokes a few months ago, you're going like England went in without Anderson and Broad in the first Ashes test last time in Australia, that Australia would be going in without Cummins and Hazelwood. It was almost like they were building this squad and keeping this squad together for about 3 months' time, and everyone was debating whether that attack. I mean, it is a great bowling attack. Those 4 plus, obviously Scott Boland, who you don't rate at all. Wow, but it's a wonderful bowling attack that they tried to keep together.
I'm not letting you get away with that. That's almost defamatory.
So that is a massive blow.
It's a question, isn't it? We touched on it in the pod, and I remember writing about it in the summer before the World Test Championship about the age of Australia's squad. Only one cricketer in that squad under 30. That's Cameron Green. And that was always going to be the question. At some point, if the older you get, the more likely injuries come, and that's happened to Cummins and Hazelwood. So, that's where they are. They're going to have to try and cover for those two in this Test match, which ain't going to be easy. But as you know, in Australia, they have quality cricketers in their system, and I'm sure Doggett will come in and do a pretty good job. But he's probably not going to be, he's not Josh Hazelwood.
I was looking this morning. Ricky Ponting has named his 11. I don't think he's involved in in selection, but he's named his 11. He has two debutants in there, and Jake Weatherall at the top. So he's playing a proper recognised opener, Labuschagne at 3, and giving Brendan Doggett a cap. So that would be two debutants in an Ashes series. Does it matter where and when you debut, or would you ideally like them to play before the first ball goes down in an Ashes series?
I think if you're the selector, the chief selector, ideally, and of course, things don't always pan out ideally. You have to adapt. But ideally, you wouldn't want players making their debut in the first Ashes of a series, this kind of unbelievably hyped series. You don't want players making their debut, do you? In that instance, you want hopefully for them to have a bit of cricket and a bit of experience behind them. But that's not how it's been. They've had a bit of a muddle at the top of the order for a while now, with Khawaja burning through about 5 different partners in the last 12 months or so, and then the unfortunate injuries to Cummins and Hazelwood. So that's where they are. Um, yeah, so that's definitely an opportunity for England without question.
One thing I want to ask you is about the short ball. I mean, you did a really good interview with Mitchell Johnson. One thing I didn't have in my pre-Ashes tour build-up bingo was Mitchell Johnson singing songs from Frozen as he ran into bowl to block out the noise. That was a good scoop from you. But I mean, on the bigger grounds in Australia, I guess Mitchell Starc will now become their enforcer. Have you seen him in the nets taking on the short ball? You can see that being a ploy in this series ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just something England, and in particular Harry Brook, I think, will have to be mindful of. I think there'll be times when they bounce all of England's batters, but I think it will be a particular tactic to Brook, who likes to take it on, as you know, often takes it on up in the air, hits upwards. And as you say, the grounds here in Australia much bigger. Places like Melbourne much bigger than the grounds in England. So I think it's just they've got to be mindful of that. But it's a very different England team from that which came 4 years ago. Australia saw a team that was a bit beaten up 4 years ago for various reasons, COVID and what have you. And this is just a much more assertive team. And that's not going to change. England will come out and look to play assertively. As you know, that's how they always play. They'll be no different this time. So I just think Australian fans will see a different England team. Stokes has really put his stamp on this team and transformed the way that he goes about it. And that'll be very different to 4 years ago. Let's hope the outcome's different as well.
Yeah, talking to Stokes, you've been catching up with him. You did an interview with him early this morning. This was before the side was announced. Let's have a listen to what the England captain thought about the series ahead and previous series.
Crown Hotel, Team Hotel here in Perth, the Perth Stadium just over the way, and the Wacker right over your right shoulder, actually, which is where you first gave notice of yourself, really, as a Test cricketer with that maiden Test match 100 there. How proud are you to be back here now, a little more than a decade later, as England captain on your third Ashes tour?
Yeah, I was actually speaking to my wife this morning, and we actually mentioned something similar like that because my son was only 1 year old when he was first here. So, yeah, made me realise how old I was when she mentioned that. But no, it's obviously back in Perth, get to see the two stadiums. I'm really looking forward to getting going at the Optus. Yeah, obviously last time we were here was at the Wacker. But yeah, I was a bit younger, a little bit more naive back then. But to be back here as England captain, yeah, I never would have thought that back on my first tour with England.
And how excited are you? Because it feels like it's the culmination, really, of a 3-year project, yourself and Baz, Rob Key, 3-year project to almost reimagine and reinvent the England team, and it's going to get its ultimate assessment here on this tour.
Yeah, really excited. It's been, as always, I've played in a few Ashes series, and whether it's home or away, the build-up always starts 2-3 months maybe in advance, and I don't think that'll ever change. It's a huge event in the calendar of international cricket. So, yeah, huge. Really excited to get going. Almost wish it was already here. And yeah, I mean, even just getting the day's training out of the way at the Optus the other day was a big moment, I think, for everyone, because you build up to it's even those small moments in an Ashes series of that. First time at the ground, even like all the media stuff that we had to do, that gives you a real sense of things are about to get going quite soon.
Brendan described it as the biggest series of all our lives. Is that how you see it as well?
Definitely, yeah.
In that, it's quite an interesting comment, because a lot of captains and coaches these days, they try and downplay the magnitude of something or the importance of a series. He's really there implying that he wants your players and your team to embrace it, embrace the series, embrace the country.
Yeah, and look, I think that's the best thing to do about this. Like, everyone in the world, everyone in Australia, everyone in England knows how big this series is, and I think if we were to come out and sort of not accept that and go, oh, nah, it's just another series, then we'd only be lying to ourselves and lying to the fact of what the series is. In particular, this team, for myself, for Brendan, and for Rob, and facing what that feels like, looking it in the eyes, taking it on, and not being afraid of the challenge that we have ahead of us. We know it's a huge task coming to Australia, and everything that comes with that, away from the field, on the field. It is a huge 2.5 months for us, and rather than playing it down and not really accepting this moment for what it is, I think maybe we would not really understand what the moment is. So yeah, putting it all out there, letting everyone know sort of the expectations of what it's going to be like, in particular because we've got a squad here who've come in and experienced in Australia for the first time. You want people to sort of have a taste of what it's like, especially from someone like myself, Joe, Zach, Woody, Popey, who have experienced it, letting them know what it can be like, just so it's not a huge shock and a bit of a whoa, I didn't really expect this to be like this. So yeah, we've gone about it that way.
And what everybody wants to know at home, of course, is how strongly do you fancy your chances?
Yeah, look, we're in a good place. We've came over here to take the Ashes home. That's the end goal. In 2.5 months' time, we'll see where we are.
History's not been kind, though, of late, and indeed, historically, England have found it very difficult to win in Australia. I think only 9 Test match wins since 1980. In the last 45 years, you've been involved in 2 tours that haven't gone well. Why have England found it so difficult to win here?
I don't know, really. But, we've selected a squad that we think is going to give us a great chance of, achieving that goal that we've set out to do. History is history. You got to take what you can from those things, maybe learn from those. But
I was going to ask that. Have you looked back at the 2 tours you've been here? Because, there's been a whitewash and a 4-0 defeat. And what have you learned, and what can you take from that to make sure there's not going to be a repeat?
I think the history of the Ashes in particular, you look all the way back in the ones that England have been victorious in. I think we can take a bit of, I don't know what's the word, a little bit of what did they do to help them win in those series, and adding that into our team as an identity, how we like to play the game, how we take it on, might give us a chance. But we all know that, history is history, and it's all about what you do in the here and now, and that's where we find ourselves in the here and now. And as soon as you walk out to Perth on day 1 when the Ashes starts, or for the rest of the series, that history, the stuff from the past doesn't count for anything. It doesn't mean anything. All we've got to do is make sure that we are better than Australia over these potentially 25 days of cricket, and we're the ones, going home with that little earn.
And do you feel you've got a bit to prove yourself here as well? I mentioned that 100, which is a little more than a decade ago. That was at the Wacker. but that's, I think, your only 100 here. You've taken 1-5 for your numbers as a cricketer wouldn't be as strong in Australia as they would be elsewhere. Do you feel you've a bit to prove here as a player?
No. Wherever I go in the world, whenever I walk out on the field and represent England, represent the country, I always give absolutely everything. So, look, if I feel like I've got to come out to anywhere, and if I walk out onto the field feeling I've got to prove to myself and, look after myself, that ain't me as a player. That ain't me as a captain. That isn't me as a leader. All I'll be doing is, whenever I've got the responsibility of influencing a game, I'll be giving absolutely everything to do that.
And you look in good nick. How are you feeling? You've got 5 tests here, 3 which will come very quickly over Christmas and New Year. Do you expect to play all 5? Are you absolutely confident in your body? I saw you bowl at Lilac Hill. You seem to be running in nicely there.
Well, I definitely expect to play all 5, unless the coach decides to drop me. But yeah, look, I'm 34. I've played a lot of cricket. I'm sure everyone knows, well, especially if you're an all-rounder, you know how hard it is to do everything. And that's always the way that I play the game. I will, leave everything out on that field. And, I've worked so hard over the last 3 months since getting back from, obviously, my hamstring injury, then I did my shoulder in India. But yeah, I've put all the hard work in, and make sure that when it comes to game time, I know that physically I am there to fulfill that role of the all-rounder to 100% of my capability.
Can I ask you about the preparation? The has-beens have accused you of winging it, really. What would... one understands that times have changed and the schedules are difficult. What would an ideal preparation look like for you ahead of a series like this?
Look, the preparation's physical and it's mental. If we've been preparing for this for a long time. It's not just been the 2-3 weeks that we've had out here as a group before this. There's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes that isn't seen by, the cameras, by the eyes, the likes of yourself, everyone else involved in the game, punditry-wise. So I said yesterday in the team huddle with our trainer, I said, if we had a game tomorrow, we are ready. Physically,
so you don't feel shortchanged
mentally, absolutely not. And we've gone about our away tours and our series in a specific way that we feel suits this group. And, people can have an opinion about that. But, I wouldn't say it feels disrespectful. I just think we know what we're doing. If you really think that we're going to be coming out here to Australia thinking that we can wing it, just come on.
Strategy. I suppose, put bluntly, you've come with a group of batters who are looking to take the game on and a group of fast bowlers in particular. Is that the essence of your strategy to win here?
Look, we've over the 4 years, we've created a team that has gelled incredibly well together, complement each other in very small, even just look at the tiny things, Zach and Ben Duck at the top of the order, and that. It's very hard for bowlers to consistently feel like they can run up and bowl the same lengths to those two. Amazing players. We've seen what Zach did in the last series against Australia. He's a fantastic player of, these types of bowlers out here. And they have been incredible for us at the top of the order. And I know there's been a lot said about, we've picked people who bowl fast, but, again, they're incredibly skillful bowlers as well. I think they've shown on numerous occasions that in different conditions that they are able to expose, different types of plans or methods to take wickets. So, we haven't just got into this thinking we need all-out pace. We've picked we're very lucky and very fortunate that we've been able to pick the fast bowlers that we have done, who, yes, all can bowl above 85 mile an hour. Some guys can get into those early to mid-90s, but they also possess a hell of a lot of skill because, pace doesn't just win you test matches because you're playing against international class batsmen, and you need skill to go along with whatever other assets you possess as a bowler.
I know you've not named your team yet, and that may come in the next day or so, and you've got to get through, final stages of prep. But ideally, would you like to see Mark Wood and Jofra Archer paired together for this opening Test match?
Yeah, look, we've still got a couple of days to go before that first Test match in Perth happens. So, you'll, as always, you'll see a team from us, as we get closer to day one.
Can I ask about those two, though? Because I think they've only taken the part together once before in Test cricket. It was actually your first game as England captain, that game in Southampton when you stood in for Joe for one game. How exciting would it be for you as captain to have that kind of a pairing in a match like this?
Yeah, it'd be exciting to have any of the 7 bowlers that we've got out here as a pairing, to be honest, Ath.
Okay, Australia, let's have a look at them. What do you see there when you look at this Australian team? Do you see a champion team, or do you see an ageing and vulnerable team?
I don't see that at all. Australia is and always will be one of the biggest forces in Test cricket. Well, in cricket in general, to be honest. I know that the news coming out of Pat and Josh not being available for this first Test is, feel like people may have swayed the result one way or the other. We don't feel that at all. Australia, fiercely competitive nation when it comes to sport, and we know that whoever comes into the team to replace those two are going to be, tough to go up against. It's international sport. Whenever you see someone out in the park, representing their country, they're good. So, look, we won't be taking this game any more lightly just because Pat and Josh aren't available.
No, it kind of feels like a bit of a golden opportunity, though, because they're missing 600 Test match wickets there.
Yeah, we'll be taking this game just as seriously if Pat and Josh were playing.
Steve Smith, he's captain. I've seen him drive England captains slightly batty in the past. Sometimes it's looked as though we've slightly overthought our approach to Steve Smith. What have you got planned for him?
Yeah, Steve Smith's a phenomenal player. To do what he's done for the amount of years he's done it for is incredible. Everyone knows he's a world-class player. He's someone that, when you walk out to bat, you hopefully see him walking back 10, 15 minutes later, because once he gets in, he's very hard to dislodge. But look, as all the Australian batting lineup, we've got our plans that we think is going to help negate the impact that they're going to have on the game. But Steve Smith in particular, class player, and hopefully we can put some stuff together to hopefully keep him, a little bit quieter than he has done in the last few series, because I think his record in Ashes cricket is quite phenomenal.
You mentioned that you've got 5 players who played Ashes cricket here. That means there's a lot who haven't. The one thing you can't really prepare for is what it's going to be like there on Friday with 60,000 people, 90,000 at Melbourne. Are you confident that you've got the right type of cricketers in your squad? And I think we're all talking about, we know the type of cricketers that are needed to do well here.
Yeah, I think so. Look, as you say, I think real important things in team sport is the unity and the bond that you have together. You spend so much time together, not only on the field but also away from the field. That's such an important thing. Team sport is full of individuals all towards the same goal, but different personalities, how they handle pressure, how they handle in the moment experiences all differ. And yeah, look, we'll have some guys who experience some kinds different emotions for the first time, walking out in Australia for the first time as an Englishman in an Ashes. Quite a few lads are going to have that experience for the first time, and as I said at the start of the interview, where we're sort of trying to, from our own experiences, let lads know what that can be like, just so it's not a bigger shock to them. And then, but in all honesty, I think when you get out into the middle and then 10 minutes is gone, it just feels like you comfort again. But how you handle that first 10-15 minutes, I think, is it's going to be a good experience for some of the guys.
You arrived to some pretty fruity headlines in the local papers. How do you see that? Did you see that as kind of knockabout stuff and par for the course, or do you sense that Bazball, to use a term, and I know you hate that term, has slightly got under the Aussies' skin?
I don't really know. As again, like, Bazball was a name came from the media. It's certainly something that we didn't come up with, but it was fully expected. When you come to Australia, I sort of knew what was going to be like. yeah, it's been interesting to watch the old the headlines as they go, as they progress, as the days that we've been here. But it's nothing that we didn't expect to happen. You know, they're a paper who want their team to win, and they will do anything to try and help them.
Which did you prefer, cocky captain complainer or the nappies and the dummy from 2 years ago?
They were both very good. I think there was a good bit of editing for the nappies and the baby one, but yeah, I said jokingly about me pushing my suitcase through the door. It was amazing. You got so much information for that headline, but no, it's all fun and games, and you know, it is what it is.
And finally, you know, England captains get judged on the Ashes, don't they? They get judged on how things go here. Do you feel that's fair? And in a sense, people are saying that, you know, the Stokes-McCullum regime need a big win. They need to win here, as if it will put everything that has happened in the last 3 years to bed, and that'll be forgotten if you win here. I mean, it doesn't feel to me like that's the case, that what you've done so far in 3 years is memorable and will still be memorable regardless of how this tour goes. But nevertheless, you know that captains are judged on what happens here.
Yeah, and I totally get that. This is, you know, you've hit the nail on the head. But for me, I've, you know, when I got given the job, obviously came in with a very clear plan and a very clear way forward of how I thought and how Brendan thought the best way possible to take English cricket, in particular Test cricket, forward and improve. That's how we did it. And for me personally, this series in itself won't
diminish what's gone
on for me.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't take away how important I feel the series is in its, you know, by itself, if that makes sense. I've come here desperate to fly home, sorry, when we're walking home from Australia, to go home on that plane, to say that I've been one of the lucky few captains from England to win an Ashes series. I know how important this is to a lot of people, not just the players, but for me personally, this won't diminish anything that I've tried to do, or the time and the effort and the energy that I put into being England captain. But yeah, I'm desperate to win this one.
Good luck.
Ben Stokes looked and sounded pretty relaxed there. How did you feel he is going into this series?
Yeah, I think he is. He looks fit for a start. He looks very trim. He looks strong. He bowled quite a lot at Lilac Hill. I think so much of England's chances are wrapped up in Stokes. You know, he's so important in so many ways, both as the captain, the kind of character he is. You know what it's like in Australia. You need cricketers of a certain character to do well here, and he's exactly that. And then his ability to bowl and balance the side, you know, to get that fifth bowler in and that beautiful balance to the side. So a lot resting on him. He looks fit. Fingers crossed that he can stay fit and get through 5 tests. The schedule is pretty nice and easy at the start, isn't it? There's long gaps between the first 2 tests and then the second and third, but then 3, 4, 5 come very quickly. So that'll be a challenge for him. But I felt he was relaxed. I've enjoyed the fact that England are not shying away from the significance of the series. You know, I put that to him really with that line from Brendan McCullum, the biggest series of our lives, or whatever the phrase was. And they're embracing that, and I think that's right. You have to. There's no point shying away from it. And I hope they enjoy the tour. It's a great country, great tour. Be very different from 4 years ago, which was the COVID tour. So he looked relaxed and happy. And I think everybody's just a bit keen to get on with it. There's been so much talk, so much hype. There seems to be more hype with every Ashes series that comes. And obviously he's been at the centre of it. He's been all over the Western Australian newspaper. I think they're at it again today with various headlines. But yeah, he's taken all that in the spirit in which I think it's intended.
I thought it was interesting, and you spoke to him about it, about the build up and the hype, and I think that's an interesting balance, because you don't want to be on Friday in the huddle as a captain pointing at your team, going, do you know how important this series is, that whole of England are watching and everyone's out here watching? You do want to sort of go out. I mean, what is this side based on in the last 3 or 4 years? What is Joe Root based on? Go out and have fun and enjoy. Remember what it was like growing up and wanting to play for England and playing in an Ashes series, and embrace that. But you also want to get the balance of this is important. So
Yeah.
getting that right. And that's why the start is important. If they can go out, and England historically in Australia, as we know, have had poor starts. If they can go out and silence the crowd and get the Barmy Army and the England fans going and enjoy it, I think getting that balance right of not overhyping it up, but realizing, as with Stokes and so, I thought your last question was excellent. You are judged as an England captain on your Ashes results, but you don't judge yourself. I don't know how you were. I always judged myself as a cricketer and as a captain. Did I do the best I could do? Did I make the right decisions at that time because I had a gut feel for it? And Stokes said that. Yeah, I will be judged on it, but really, have I given myself the best opportunity in the last 3 or 4 years to be an excellent England captain? So, unfortunately, you are judged on Ashes series, but I think we both think, however this goes, we've been mighty impressed with Ben Stokes as an England captain.
Oh, for sure, and I don't think it should diminish um, his achievements as an England captain in the last 3 years. There've been some memorable days. We've followed them around and had days in Pakistan, where they played unbelievable cricket, 500 in a day. But as you say, you are judged on it on Ashes cricket, and as long as the Ashes is going and is relevant, that's how it will be. It's how it's always been. One thing that interests me, because I was looking at his numbers actually, and I put it to him, and he batted it away a little bit. Whether he's got a bit to prove as a player here. He's not had that much success in Ashes cricket in Australia. Scored that maiden 100 in his second test at the Wacker. Hasn't added another. I think there's 1-5 at Sydney. And he's played 9 tests and lost 8 of them. That whitewash of 2013-14, and then the 4-0 in 2021, 21-22 wasn't here in 2017. So I don't think Australia have seen the best of him as a Test cricketer in Australia. And hopefully he and the other big players. I think your big players have got to stand up in an Ashes series. So Root's, got to put all that noise to bed about him not having scored 100 here. Brook's got to show his abilities. Hopefully Archer can stay fit, and Stokes himself. I think if your big cricketers stand up, then England have a chance.
Yeah, I mean, with both of those, they've been good in England against Australia. I mean, Stokes in particular, obviously Headingley and Lords last time out trying to chase down that score. He's the sort of cricketer and the type of cricketer that Australians actually do love. I mean, they probably don't love him now because of Bazball and how much they hate Bazball, but actually, he's the type of cricketer. I mean, I saw Broady arriving at the airport yesterday with a big picture of him behind. There's a love-hate relationship with the Botham, Broad, Peterson, that sort of character that takes them on. And Stokes is definitely that. I mean, he did bat away. I think he's been quite smart as well. You did your journalistic best to get some headlines out of him when you said sort of, is this still a champion side or are they an aging side? And he sort of batted that one away. I do think he's got to be a bit smart. I mean,
Well, he also
Strauss touched on it last week in the pod. It's going to be an emotional ride for him, win
yeah.
or lose. They're
Well,
going to be, you're going to be in that press conference, and there's going to be headlines. He's got to try and not give them more headlines. I don't
Well,
think.
he gave everybody a headline, didn't he, in the first few days at Lilac Hill when he called all us former players has-beens when people were criticising or questioning the preparation. That the word has-been slipped out. I don't know. Are we has-beens now? We
Well,
never were. I don't think it's nice to have been a has-been.
we're more of a has-been than Ian Botham. I can tell you that much. I mean, Lord Botham, a has-been, that would have rattled his cage, definitely. So he'd have to put a glass of red wine down when he heard that. So we are definitely has-beens, Af. So, and the hype, is it still going on? Is it still there? The Barmy Army and fans must be arriving. Do you feel like we're on the verge of something now and you can't wait
Definitely,
for it to
yeah.
kick
I
off?
mean, they say they say between 35 and 40,000 people will be coming to Australia over the course of the Ashes. I bumped into a lot of supporters here. There's a lot in Perth. They're absolutely up for it. And you get the sense that the city is buzzing. And this stadium, which is, it's very different to the old Wacker, which was, had character, but, it's not kind of a modern multi-sport stadium. So this is going to be absolutely rocking when you get here on Friday. Definite sense
Boring
that this
question is does the Fremantle, is it because it's a bowl now? Does
yeah, I
in our
don't
old
think,
day the Fremantle doctor used to blow it in the afternoon? You don't even get that.
yeah.
Even the forecast is not for it to be
Well,
that hot, to be honest.
no, well, normally England come to Perth much later, don't they? When we played, Perth was the last test of the series. It's often been more recent times, it's been the third test of the series, but it means you're going there, towards Christmas time, whereas this is obviously the first, and they made that decision to avoid the Gabba first. But it feels cooler. It's been quite cool. The question about the doctor, the Fremantle doctor, I've just no idea. But because, as you say, because it's more of an enclosed stadium, I don't think it will blow in as it used to at the Wacker. But it doesn't feel that hot anyway at the moment. So, and I think the forecast is for kind of the weather's going to be fine, but it ain't going to be absolutely roasting. So I'm just looking out the pitch on the ground now, and Bashir and Will Jacks are doing sprints. Well, I'd say sprints. Bash is trogging along at the back there, trailing Will Jacks by about 100 yards. But anyway,
You ain't no
England.
Usain Bolt yourself, even with your river run. Right, $1 million question. I'm not going to ask you for a prediction. I remember we had Rob Key on months ago, and I said, how do you win in Australia? And he just batted it away. We'd get more runs and get more wickets than the opposition. I'm not going to ask you for a prediction, but how and where is this series won and lost? What are the key factors that this England side have to embrace? They are 0 from 15 in the last 15 test matches. And he didn't talk about it too much, Stokes, in that interview. But what do they have to do better?
I think they've got to believe in themselves and their strategy. They've put Stokes, McCullum, and Key have transformed the mentality of this side. Stokes has put his stamp on this side, and their strategy is to play aggressive cricket with the bat and bowl quickly with the ball. I think history has shown that you need pace here to win. It's not the only way of winning. Strauss did it slightly differently. But Stokes, if he regains the Ashes here, I think he's becomes only the third England captain in the last 100 years to do that. And the other two were Jardine and Illingworth. And the common denominator there was a bit of pace for both, Larwood and Bodyline and John Snow with Illingworth. So I think the strategy of being aggressive with the bat, fast bowlers with the ammunition to take 20 wickets, and have faith in that. And I don't think they'll be for turning. So, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, and be flexible as well. I mean, the history of Ashes has been on flatter wickets with a Kookaburra ball, and obviously recently it has been slightly different. And Ben touched on it in that interview. They are quick bowlers, but they are also very skillful bowlers,
Yeah.
as will the Australian attack will be, actually. They are very skillful bowlers. So it should be a good series with pitches that may do a bit more, skillful bowlers, maybe fragile batting lineups. We shall see. One thing's for certain, Ath, I can't wait for the first ball.